training night, our speaker series. We have for you tonight Ian Henshaw. He's with Open Data Soft, and wears quite a few hats around the community. He's a managing partner of Technology Tank, a think tank that provides technology policy and implementation strategies to government agencies, businesses, and nonprofits. He's also the director of international development for the RTP area of North Carolina for Twin City Alliance, which consults to match companies for mutual benefit in international business. And he's also the owner and president of Oak Haven Research, an IT consulting and integration company. He also does some work with charitable organizations and serves on the Town of Cary Economic Development Committee. So, welcome Ian, of course.
Yeah, so I do wear many hats, involved in probably 5 companies at this point in time, and the one that we're talking about right now, Open Data Soft, is a company that has a platform, a data platform for open data and other things. So we'll be focusing on that. But I also manage the Cary Innovation Center, been involved with entrepreneurism myself and helping other people. We go to hackathons and compete, and we run hackathons for different organizations. So I will say that what happened in the other room, the one thing you have to remember when you're doing a pitch is the tech always crashes, and you always have to have a backup plan. So I'm really glad that there's a backup plan here, so you guys can all see what's going to happen here. Now, so open data has been kind of a big thing. It's been around for decades. And this is, the municipal governments have lots and lots of data, and it all belongs to us. We pay taxes, so the data that the government collects belongs to us, and kind of a early way to get at that, public records laws were created so that you can actually request the data and the government has to provide that to you. But more as a proactive measure, open data. So the data now is available free of charge, so that you can review it, you can analyze it, you can download it, you can do whatever you want with it. So I've been involved with the Open Data Institute out of London, England. I'm a registered trainer for the Open Data Institute, and I've been involved with several companies. Technology Tank itself consults on open data, but involved with several other companies in the open data space. So in July of last year, I became engaged with Open Data Soft to be their business development manager in the United States. Open Data Soft started as a company in 2011, so the founders of Open Data Soft came from the search world. This is a company out of Paris, France, so think French Google. So the structure and the of the Open Data Soft platform, this is a hosted product in the cloud. So it is built around search technology. They use a lot of Elasticsearch, if you know anything about that. GitHub uses that, other people. So it makes it very responsive in terms of being able to find any of the data in the platform. The platform also will scale to hundreds of millions of rows, so it is very capable of expansion of things. So open data, by definition, say, would be freely available to anybody, whether it's man or machine. That it is in a neutral file format, so that you don't have to have specialized software to be able to access the data. It has to, again, freely accessible, so on the web would be a great place for it to be. And the Open Data Institute itself was started by Sir Tim Berners-Lee and Nigel Shadbolt. Sir Tim Berners-Lee, you might know, is the father of the modern web. He's the one, when he was working at CERN, that created what became the World Wide Web. So again, so open data really to them at the Open Data Institute is the next version of the web. It's the evolution of the web. All the data should be there, it should be linked, it should be accessible, you should be able to get to it. So how do you do that? So a platform like Open Data Soft allows you to get to that data, and we're going to go through some of these things. So Open Data Soft has a free portal offer for Brigades of Code for America. Code for America is a national nonprofit that looks to bring technology into the government space. And as part of that, so this program here being kind of unique in the country, the data analytics program at Wake Tech, Open Data Soft also looked to give a kind of brigade portal to the program. And there also is a freemium product, but I'll get into that kind of at the end. So one thing to know about Open Data Soft, it is cloud hosted. The back end is closed source, but the front end is totally open source. So through HTML, CSS, and Angular JavaScript widgets, you can create whatever you want. So the publisher of the data is in total control of how the look and feel and presentation of the data. Also to know everything, so this is a view, so this is kind of the Wake Tech Analytics portal. This is out of the box kind of front end. It's not really configured, but everything you see on there is populated by the open source widgets that Open Data Soft uses to, that are available. So there are GitHub repositories of the widgets. And the widgets allow you to do, say this is a catalog icon, so it shows you something about this data set. There's a search widget here. There are facet widgets here. So you don't actually have to use the front end of the product. You can actually embed these widgets anywhere else. So if you're on your own website, something, you can actually take this functionality. You don't have to use the front end of Open Data Soft. Again, open source front end. The data is housed in the back end, and that everything you do on the front end, so any click you do on the front is an API call to the back end. The processing's all done on the back end, and it provides you the data you've asked for through that click, what the widget is asking for. Any questions anybody has as I'm going through, please ask, because sometimes I just assume everybody knows everything I'm talking about, and I just keep going through. So if you got a question, please don't hesitate to stop. What I want to do is show some of the functionality. So where does Open Data Soft sit? So it's a data platform. It has some data transformation tools inside of it. It also has some data analytics tools inside of it. Now, you guys are learning SAS and Tableau and R and Python, right? So R, SAS, Tableau, these are high-level data analytics programs. This is not a high-level data analytics program. It's a data platform. It has some analytics in it. And it's actually been made to be user-friendly for the average business user and for the average web developer. Okay, so you don't need, the hurdle for training on the platform is low, and the ability to get in and actually interact with the platform is low. So it kind of sits kind of in between that SAS, Tableau, and Excel in terms of analytics for what we're talking about here. So if you're going to do regression analysis stuff, this is the platform. But this platform could serve the data you need in your other analysis. And so I'll show you as we go through. Again, everything's an API call. But as we go through, what we're talking about, we're building a URL string or an API call, right? If you know the structure, if you can see the structure of that string, you can programmatically create that string in your Python script, R script, whatever you're using, and pull the data directly out of the back end, right? So you don't actually have to interact with the front end. So programmatically, you can actually go through and pull the data you want, okay? So that's kind of a neat thing about it. So what I want to do is, just briefly, there's two sides. So there's the Explore side. So this is, again, open data is available to anyone. So if data sets are made public, anybody can see them. You don't need a login. Anybody can interact with it. And there's several things on here. The Explore, where you're looking at the data sets. Cartograph is the mapping tool. Advanced Charts is an advanced charting tool for analytics and graphs and stuff. So anybody can look at that. You don't need an account on the platform. There's the publishing side of the platform where you can load data sets, do transformations, do some way that data is presented to the people that don't have a login. Okay, and so if you have an account, there's different levels of access you can get, which allow you to be able to control who can do what with the data. So with that, I'm going to go to administration here. So we're going to create a new data set. So this is a simple data set. And add a source here. So there's three things we could do. We can either add a file. So again, there's several different file formats that are available. Any of the neutral file formats, CSVs, even OpenOffice format, Excel actually it'll pull in, KML files, shape files. So there's a list, and the documentation shows you what those are. You could also enter a URL. So this would be an endpoint, and I'll show you that pretty quickly. So either an API endpoint, or it could be a file on an FTP server, HTTP, so website, or you could just cut and paste data. So you've got several different ways. We're going to upload a file, which is just a very simple file. And what this file is, it gives you an idea what it's going to look like when it's published on the platform. So this is just, we've got a few things. This is a file I put together. Open Data Portals in North Carolina, Code for America Brigades in North Carolina, and the Code for America Brigades that have a brigade Open Data Portal in North Carolina. So we look at that and we say, great, it's going to come in how I want it. I save that. And if I publish it, I can move to the other side of the platform, the Explorer. So we'll go look at what this file looks like. So it looks basically like the file I just uploaded. But it does know that, oh, that's a URL, and it'll make that clickable. So there's some knowledge in the platform. If it sees something it thinks it knows, it suddenly, functionality becomes available in the port. This file is kind of interesting, but it's not very helpful yet. So one of the things that Open Data Soft has, again, we're built on search technology. So if you've used any like OpenRefine or any of these tools, faceting in search is like a pre-indexed field. So the first field here is a feature. There's a couple of things, cities, a couple of things. So if I go in there, so now we get into the processing side. So we've loaded data. We're now in the processing. We can now modify the data. We can do some things in faceting. We can do some other transformations. So we have this tool called Facet. So we're going to go and facet the feature in the city really quickly. I'm going to save that, publish it, and go back here to see what that means. So now we look at this, and now the facets have appeared. So these pre-index of the fields have arrived. Now what it allows me to do is now when I'm looking at it, I can rapidly drill down through the data. So if I'm just looking for portals, I can see that these are the portals. The rest of the data now is don't want to see. And actually, if I want to export, I can export what I've selected, or I can export the whole data set. So the facets allow me to rapidly go through the data on the table. And it actually allows me to do some other things. Another thing is right now, we've got a latitude and longitude field, and separately they're not useful, but if they were together, it can be a geo point, and as soon as we have any geo information, the platform says, oh, I can map that. So let's go back, and we're going to add a processor now. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the data. You can do some geocoding, you can do some date handling, some very powerful things with numerical transformations, and field manipulation. So if your data set is not in the form you want as it's pulled down, you don't have to go through like a cleaning exercise in Excel. You can say, I'm going to get that file and it's going to have this junk in it every time I see it. You can actually go through and do the transformations in the platform, and so anytime you refresh that data set, all these things are going to run. So what happens here is the actual data set you load, it never gets changed. We're not modifying that data set. What you see is the result of the transformations done on the data set you've loaded. Okay, that's what's presented to the user. And you can either export the transformed data or you can export the original data. So you've got the ability to look at both. It gives you some idea of what's happening with that. So we're going to go through here. We're going to concatenate text. So we've got that latitude and longitude. So if we put a comma in, we take the latitude and the longitude, and we're going to put it in a new field called location. So when we do that, you see a new field is up here. Again, this is not an original data set. This is now in the transform data set. But we have a location that's auto-populated with that concatenation. And it thinks it's text, but we can say, that's really a geopoint. And as soon as I do that, the map now, ability to do mapping has appeared. So if I save this, publish it, and come back to the view, we don't have map yet, but if I refresh this, now map is an option. So it says, oh, I have geolocation, I can map this. So in fact, there's other data types. So if you have like a start and end time, the feature of a calendar will appear. If you have images that you've uploaded, there's kind of a Flickr type environment appears. So if I do this now, I can go in and now I can interact with this data either from the table view, I can interact with it on the map view. Analyze, there's not interesting data here yet, so we won't show that yet. But again, anytime I'm in the facet side, if I select through the facets, I'm just refining the part of the data I want to see. So it, again, rapidly does that refine. So I've got some map information, I've got facets, that's an important part of the platform. So I want to quickly show cartographs. So visualization of map information is really powerful. So if I come in here, and again, so this is available to any user of the platform, they don't have to have a login. So we're going to add a data set, and we have this open data, and we're going to come here, filter, we're going to say, I want to see the portals. So we're going to add that as a layer to the map. We'll edit this, just call this portal. We're going to go add another layer. So I'm going to abbreviate this in just a second. So, but I could add a different data set if I want. I can add any data set in the portal. I can add any facet of that data set into a layer on this map. So if I had crime data and maybe census data on average income or something like that, I can now start looking at some of those things and putting it on the same map. As long as the data sets, and one of the things in the publisher is you sculpt that data in terms of grading facets that people can use, doing some of the transformations to extract data out that might be useful. People can do a lot more different analysis. Again, this is the high power analysis you can do in SAS or Tableau or R, but it gets you quickly to visualize something that you might be able to see. So again, we're going to come in here, we'll just pick brigades. So we'll add that second layer. And we'll call this civic. Save this. So what I talked about, I don't like that. I do this all the time. Okay, so we're back on a map that we can see all the cool stuff. I'm going to save this, but everywhere that I'm at on the portal, whether it is on any view, I've got items down here. So there's a share or an embed. So the share is a URL, and if I take this and paste it into a new window, I get what I've created. So it's not really that fancy yet, but this is an interactive visualization that I can turn on and off layers. If I select one of the icons, I've got a tooltip that pops up that gets the information. So it's a rapid way of doing that. And kind of show you what the end result of what that would look like if I go to a different portal. So Code for Cary, we've got a bunch of different things, but I've saved this. So when I visualize this, so now Again, I can change colors, I can change icons, I can do stuff, but now I get, again, an interactive map that I can do this. And either I can share that, I can create an embed. The embed code allows you to embed this on a website. So the embed will actually go to the front end, do things, and present what you need on the website. So you're getting whatever data happens to be in the portal that second is what would come on the embed. Now there's also, as we'll go back to, so we were creating this, but we'll go back to explore. We're here in the data set. We're on a table view, but I've got a share, embed, or widget. So again, the share gives you a URL where you can get the information. The embed gives you an embed code where you can embed this. The widget now, this becomes the open source part of OpenDataSoft. This is how you activate the JavaScript widgets. So you can actually cut and paste that code into, I found something interesting I want to show. I might show a data table, I might show a graph, I might show a map, but I can now take that code and paste it into a website. And so now I can put the data into where somebody, either a data story or on a page of some interest on a website. So you can get to more, so kind of just a very advanced version of this with multiple, I logged this for. So like for the town of Greensboro, they had a file that had all the city facilities, parks, you know, rec type stuff. And we went in and we created a visualization. So now we get a map. Where are the parks? This little icon here will geolocate you. This is the mobile responsive platform. So if you're on your iPhone or something, you can actually locate and find out where things are. And then you have the ability to, again, open up, find the different features in a city. So you can rapidly create some sort of visualization to get people to data, to get to interact with data. Cool. Any questions at this point? Cool. Okay, so I'm going to just load another data set, which is a, this is where we were. So I'm going to load another data set, and I've got to find, so this is going to be an API endpoint. I have too many links. Okay, so geo information. So Esri is a major platform that does geospatial authoring, and it has lots of geospatial data. So this is a public API endpoint for hurricane track data. So all I need to do is take this, put it into, so I'm going to add a source now, the URL. And when I do that, it looks at it and says, oh, it knows what this data is. This is an ArcGIS server. It knows how to pull it in. So I can go over here to processing, and I can start looking at this data and stay on this page. So again, I can sculpt the data. So this object ID is not really interesting. I can make that go away. I can always get it back. Again, I'm not changing the data set. And actually, when I'm viewing that table, I can't modify it and push it back to the server. This is a one-way track of information. I'm only pulling data. I'm not pushing data back. I can come in here, I can say, we want to create a facet of the name, maybe that would be interesting. Wind speed might be interesting. Category might be interesting. Basin might be interesting. I've got some dates. I can actually create that as a facet. OpenDataSoft knows what to do with that. I can say we can sort this by descending date. So I'll do the latest ones at the top. And I've got some geo information. So I'm good to go. So if I save this now, publish it, what's really cool is when I go back to Explore, this data set now, I didn't rename it, but it's available. So this data set is actually 58,000 records. But as soon as the data starts loading, whatever's in the back end, when you do an API call, whatever's there, it says that's available to look at. So you don't have to close the data set, update it, and then reopen the data set. It's always available. So if I were to look at a map, then I now can start visualizing that. In fact, if I refresh this, you'll see we're up to 15,000 records, and I can start, so platform search enabled, so let's see if Katrina has arrived yet. Katrina has not arrived yet.
Do they have multiple rows to draw out those paths? How? Didn't know, just from the hurricane ID, had like multiple rows that had different lat longs.
Oh yeah, so actually this hurricane ID might not be interesting, but like anything named Charlie, those are the Charlie tracks, right? You can do so if I'm actually clear that, I can actually come in here and say, let's zoom in on the map. There's North Carolina. So I want to say, define some geometry that might kind of look like North Carolina. So any so now any of the tracks that go through that shape that I've created would be available. So I can do some sort of geo search, either by a point and define some area. So now this actually is a search. So what I was talking about is, if you look up here in this URL, we're actually doing a geofilter by a polygon. So if we go out here, you could actually, so again, you could take that string, if we take this and paste it into Notepad, say, no, make it go right, so here's the structure, but here's my polygon. So you could actually programmatically decide, I want a different polygon. I can replace that in the string, and this would poll the back end and get whatever data you asked for. So whether it's a search on some facet for a name, so if we come in here, we're going to clear that, we're going to come in here to Florence. Again, we're refining by name Florence, right, and a location of the map. So anytime you want, you can actually, in your Python code or your whatever code you're at, you can directly poll the database because that URL string or the embed codes are programmatically, or can be programmatically defined. Cool. So now, let's see where we're at. We're pretty close. We're at 57,000 records, so we're pretty close to being done. Now we can get to kind of the analysis of the data. So we're going to look at the date. This is by year, average. Maybe we want to look at count. So that's the count of the hurricanes by year. I could do a search to refine, say, the date. I can add a series, which maybe we're going to look at wind speed. Average wind speed of hurricanes over the time. So I can start looking at count versus that. Maybe this is average. We want to look at pressure. So, again, you can quickly look through the data, and whether it's again, this is 57,000 records, but if it's a data set of 150 million records, you're as responsive in terms of just quickly going through and saying, basically, so one of the things that so facets these things are facets, so I can actually do some analysis on them. If I have a data set that doesn't have any facets, I can't do any of the analytics on it. But I can move back and forth. So where were we? Code for Cary. So show you a data set here of, so we actually have a data set of crime. Cary doesn't have an open data portal right now, town of Cary, but the brigade has one. And so we actually receive by public records request a CSV file once a week with the crime incident data. So what you can see here is we manually upload that file, so it just appends the file. I could download the original files I got if I want. If I realize that data was corrupted for some reason, I get an updated file, I can just replace it. But then we do some processing, so there's a bunch of different things you can do, and I can go through some of that. So we added a field, so here's Latin long, so we can map. We do a text extraction, so actually this is regex, so we actually had one field that had a major and minor category in the same field, but we can split that into two separate fields. So now we can create a facet on the major field and the minor field, right? So we can get more information, or easier, we can get more information easier out of the data than having to say, gosh, I got this file, I have to do all this processing before I do some analysis of it. So as you find those things, we can concatenate text. There was a date field and a time field. If we have a date-time field now, we can do some interesting things. We can set time zones, and then actually, so one of the things we do with this is we feed a civic app, but the app requires a unique ID as it pulls in. So we actually create that field that wasn't in the original data set, but we create the field so that the civic app, when it pulls from the API call to say, I need some data from you, it now has that field all of a sudden. So it wasn't in the original data set, but I can add it to it. And again, there's a tremendous amount of things you can do. So I know one of the things you have to do in data analytics all the time is there's no clean data set, right? Every data set's dirty. And it may be that you get a file. So let's look at, actually let's look at Open Durham. So Durham City and Durham County have a combined portal, and they have this file, City Budget Summary. So we'll just take a look at this. This is something that we published on, say, the budget summary. So this is actually, I don't know if this was scraped off a PDF file and then put into a CSV, or maybe the Excel file was scraped to us. But we've got this situation. You've got all these columns of, actual, revised, whatever. So if you were trying to do some analysis of what is the difference in this account, 2015, 2014, 2013, this file is not really helpful, right? It's not formatted in a way you could do anything with it. But we took that file and put it into the Durham portal. So here's the same file now. So I pulled this file in, but in processing, we've done a bunch of different things to it. So we go back to this file. I've got this. There's a subtotal. That's not really a useful row. I don't really see that. I've got some other formatting things. So we're able to go. So we replaced. We actually pulled out some information of a field. So we don't need some of the information there. So we did a replace. We skipped any records that total, so those are blank. We don't want to see those. We did this transformation. So this is like a pivot where all those columns now, for all those different fiscal years, actual, estimated, whatever, they pivot. So now I create a record for that with that header and whatever the value was in that field. I go through, there's actually some of the fields that have some spurious data, so we replace some of the information in there, and then we split this. So now this table, from that ugly looking table you couldn't really do anything with, we're now here, we've got a fiscal year, we've got a budget type, so now we can actually go through the analytics. Yes?
Hi, Manjush, I'm an instructor in the program here, and I was wondering, what is your incentive? I mean, who's demanding your cleaned product? Because I would imagine that a lot of our students, our task, for example, would be to provide them with the raw data and have them do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaning is obviously, demand specific.
Right.
So how do you determine what to focus on and what type of cleaning you do and what type of complete data sets that you provide? Clean
Yeah,
data
so
sets.
actually open data set, we don't provide data, right? We provide a platform for people to publish their data,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we provide them tools for
Mhm.
what they would do. So again, I'm giving an example of a file that's received that is kind of, you really have to do something with this file to actually be able to use this data.
So these examples that you're showing, for example, for the city of Durham,
Mhm.
and all the transpose, et cetera, that's been
Mhm.
done, has that been done by the city of Durham? Is it been done?
It's either been done by the brigade,
Mhm.
right? So these are civic activists that want to work with the government, help them. It is done by the city itself as they publish this data.
Okay.
They get a data set, it's not really that useful. They can do some transformations, make it more useful.
Mhm.
So that people that are accessing it now can do things you couldn't necessarily do with the data set as received. So again, just the functionality. So again, I'm trying to show not just open data, but some of the functionality of the portal where
Functionalities that
you
you
can
can
actually
use.
do, you don't have to have a transformation tool set to take the data set, do a transformation, now get it to your analytics platform. You can actually do it in here and then do some of the analytics here.
So if I wanted to put in if I had a repository of all big tech student data,
Mhm.
and I anonymize it, and I can actually use this platform to display it and also to create some summary tables, et cetera, for it,
Right.
right? Is that the role that this will play?
Yes. So again, so this is a publishing platform for data.
Mhm.
It allows you, in these instances, what I'm showing is that I get data in a format that's not helpful
Mhm.
for some sort of analysis. So if I were now, from that site, I couldn't do anything with, but if I come to this data set, now here on the view, if I go into analyze, I can look at fund description. I'm going to break down the series by fiscal year. So now I can see, and maybe I can, so I see that, here we have a change over time. I couldn't see that at all with the previous file, right? So I can either go through and say, I just want to see anything in finance. So now I'm again seeing the same thing I've drilled down. I just want to see the finance stuff. Or maybe I want to see the ballpark operations fund. So again, this gives me something, if I'm doing a report specifically on this, then this allows me to, based on this fiscal year now, I've got a way to present this data. I can take again, the share the embed or the widget. I can put this into the report I'm creating that says, I'm doing a report on either funding or traffic stops or whatever the data is. And I can get to what, I drill through the data, find the thing that helps me tell my story. And now I can take this and embed it directly, right? I don't have to take a snapshot of this. So that as the data set changes, every time somebody's looking at that data story report, the latest current information is there. Of course, you can always take a snapshot, but you can actually make it interactive so that now from either a performance dashboard or some sort of latest breaking news of these are the crime incidents around you or the street repairs going on around you or something like that, that now the information being provided and it's always up to date, right? It's So whether it's student data or actually student data, so a feature of the platform. So if we go back to this, there's a security option where we see that there's 2 people now that have full access to this data set. But it's restricted, so actually if you don't have a login, you can't actually see what I've done, right? But you can give access to people to see it, to modify it, to whatever. So if you had student data that was not anonymized, you can actually keep that as a private data set. You could do some different things with it. And then you can make sure that only certain people can see what you've done. Or you can take the fields that have the personally identifiable information and you can make those not viewable to the public, right? So you don't actually have to create 2 data sets. Everybody's looking at the same data set. I'm looking at a portion of the data set. You're looking at the whole data set because you have access to see the whole data set.
So you're not actually allowing the raw data and the processing open to the public. It's the underlying.
The processed data is available if I allow it to be. So this little box here, it says this access is restricted. So if you don't have a login, you can't see this, right? I can allow you as a user, so if you have a user account, I can give you authority to see this file or a portion of this file.
But like in the case of Durham, what do they allow the public to
Yeah, so here's their catalog. I am not currently logged into the portal. They have 162 public data sets. Now, I actually have administrator access to this, which is kind of dangerous maybe. So if I log into the platform, so now I have administrator access. I'm going to go back to that catalog. There's 173 data sets now that are visible to me. But those are the published data sets. If I actually go into look at on the published side now, so these are data sets that are not published, there's 477 data sets on the platform. So there are data sets that they have not yet published to the public, that they're either working on or using as an internal data set. They've created maybe a performance dashboard that should only be seen internally. It might have some confidential information, security information, or personally identifiable information. So it's something created. If you have authority to see those data sets, you can see that analytics or whatever on that data.
So each customer will have their own sort of process
Right.
on how they
So,
get to those.
yeah. So again, we provide a platform for people to publish data and then give the publishers complete control over the look, the feel, and control to that data. And it's, yeah, so this is all stored in the cloud. So we're on the Amazon network. Actually, Durham, I think, is on a Virginia server in Amazon. So there's also, I want to quickly, so the open source part. So we'll go back to Greensboro here. No, I want to be administration. So there's this thing called pages. So this is where you can actually create, you can use the open source stuff. So this is where the widgets come in. So I showed you the visualization of like the parks and all that in Greensboro. But we can also create it through, so this is an app version of it. So this is the widgets directly pulling. So I've got a map that's showing, I've got, I hate when I do that. Got a map that's showing, I've got a search widget here, and I've got a facet widget. So that's really all this platform is. And if I go back and I look at what this is, I have a little bit of CSS styling, and I have HTML code. Okay, that's what created that visualization, right? So that's a page. So I've got a little bit of HTML code, and then here I'm pulling the widgets. So here I define where I'm getting the data set from. So again, I can pull from any open data set platform across the world that has public data sets. I can define that in my open source widgets. I've got a map widget, I've got a text search widget, and I've got a facet widget. That's the code that creates this. Right, so now if I click on one of these things, I get the information about that. Say I'm looking for a specific, Arlington Park. I can get directly to that specific thing, so again, search, I can get to that. Or I can go through the widget here and say, okay, I want to see all the parks. So these would be all the parks that are available. So now this is fully responsive, so if I change the form factor, it changes whether I'm on a phone, tablet, whatever. So I can quickly then draw those widgets. So let's look at maybe another one we did. We did this one, so this is a little more. Let's see what this one does. Okay, so we've got a map, we've got a search, we actually have a table that's embedded, and then we've got a visualization that is embedded. And again, so this is would be an open source app or something. And I don't have to be, this is the functionality on the front end of the platform, but I can embed all this stuff on a website and get this same functionality wherever I am. Yeah.
Just to make sure I understand this, you're saying when you take that information, you embed it in the website, then you go back in here and update that information and automatically updates on the website. Am I understanding?
Yeah, so the question is, can you, if you embed this stuff on your website, can you come back here and modify it? So if I took this code and put it directly into my website, this code does not exist on the platform, right? It exists on the website. Right. So I can create this. Actually, so there's an interesting thing here. I can share it or embed it. So I can create this here. I can embed this on my website. And then when I modify the code here, whatever's on the website will change. But I could take this code and put it directly on my website. It does now exist on the front end of the platform. It's pulling directly from the back end. So the modifications I have to do to the code would be on the website, not on the platform. Does that answer the question? Yeah. I'm going to call on Chris. Because Chris is a Code for Raleigh guy, but knows a lot about the platforms, been using it. What kind of things did I might not mention in the presentation so far that might be interesting to the group here?
I think one of the things is the ability to merge data sets right on the platform.
Cool. So merging data sets. So I opened too many windows. So here I am at Cary. So I'm at Cary. So one of the processors, if I look at, is join data set. So if I've got a common field in two different data sets, now I can define those and then pull information into the data set. And so let's see a data set where we've done that. So this Cary building inspection. So this one's interesting. We actually scraped the Town of Cary website for building inspections. A friend of mine, Matt Ryszkowski, had a script. So we have 16 years worth of data. So that's what the individual files are here. But the data sets, or the data points, it had an address, but it wasn't geocoded. Now, there's a processor in the platform that will geocode addresses, either through the Google API or through the Esri ArcGIS API. So if you have a key for those, you can get it done. But we're talking about 166,000 records here. And the Google free API, which you can use, does 3,000 a day, right? So this is, we had this data set, it's like, gosh, it's gonna take us so long to do that, we wanna do something with this data set. But we had a previous data set we downloaded of 75,000 records, all the parcel data from the Town of Cary. and we had geocoded those. So now I've got an address with a geocode, and I've got another file with an address and no geocode. So we came in here and said, we're going to join this data set. So I've got a local key of address, I've got a remote key of address, and I'm going to pull in the location field. So I'm now going to suck that out. So of the 73,000 records, or whatever it was now, whatever the duplicates are, they'll get the same information. So now I've got 166,000 records basically geocoded, and I didn't have to go through the geocoding process. So yes, being able to join the data set and actually pull that information in is kind of a powerful tool. So that's good. Anything else, Chris? I mean,
Terrific job. I've seen it a couple of times, but yeah.
yeah, I don't want to go through like a lot of the stuff. There's tons of visualizations and stuff that you can do. Now, so like the brigades have a free open data software portal. Wake Tech Analytics has a free brigade version of the portal that allows 20 data sets and some records. So that's what we're looking at. Chris has actually been in here looking at this. Where were we? Again, I have too many things up. Oh, I lost it. No, wait a second. Sorry. So there's now 6. I've loaded 2 data sets in here, right? So, but OpenDataSoft has a freemium offering. So if you go to the site opendatasoft.com, you can select this, try it for free. So you can get a free account. It allows you 5 data sets of 20,000 records each. Actually, you can have 1 data set of 100,000 records. So it's kind of flexible that way. It's not, you don't have to stop. So if you're doing something you want, again, these have full functionality. So maybe what I would suggest is if you're doing a project, you see some of the functionality, you see what it likes, it can do some of the data cleaning from you. You might pull the data set several times and have to do the same thing over and over. Once you build those rules, anytime you would replace that data set in the processing, all those processors just run, right? So you don't have to recreate all that stuff. You can actually, if you pull from a website or an API endpoint, you can set a schedule, the platform itself pull in the new data for you, right? So you're always getting the updated data. So if you've got a project you're working on, you want to use some of this functionality, get a freemium product, 5 data sets, 20,000 records. Do the type of product, again, it's not the high level analysis, but this may be able to help feed the analysis you're trying to do. It may help you to do some things with that data, present it in a way, or create some visualizations that are a lot easier. Again, the hurdle is, the hurdle for some of the other platforms, the amount of time it takes to actually learn some of the functionality. If you might want to work on a group project where you've got several different data sets you want to work on, that would be a great place for the Wake Tech Analytics support. You do some student data or something like that. I need to work on 10 data sets and stuff. So that's beyond the freemium, but it is perfectly in line with the brigade of data core. So that functionality is there. And then, of course, my contact information is on my card. And over here, there's some swag there. I've got some stickers and some things, some information about what we did with the Durham Open Data Portal. So that information is up here on the table. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm accessible by email. There are all the documentation for OpenDataSoft is online. It's pretty good. With even from the developer side. Again, all the widget libraries are in GitHub, so you can look at that. We do have customers that contribute back new widgets. So if you're interested in doing that sort of thing, by all means, we'd be more than happy to have you contribute to the community. And then really from the front end, that open source, so one of the projects we worked on in Durham, and I'll show this really quickly, they have this, so dashboards, so again, through that pages function, they created some dashboards. They have this one for restaurant inspection data. So again, using the widgets, crafting this page, this is an embed of a heat map of, so there's 3 separate data sets here. There's a data set of restaurants and their locations. There's a data set of inspections, and then there's a data set of violations. So we're actually going to navigate through all 3 of those data sets in the same dashboard. So here we're just on this tab, we've embedded this visualization. If I go to inspection results, here's a different visualization of the grades that were received. And if I click on one of these, I can find the place we're not going to lunch. Right? So I'm taking these large data sets now and I'm rapidly going through, but now I'm going to link through all 3 of the data sets. I've got a map. So I can search here, maybe when I go to Burger King. So now all the Burger Kings I hit return, show up. If I select one now, I can link to that first data set that shows the location information of that. This is the second data set that's showing now. So for that location, these are all the inspections that were done. And if I select one of these, I'm now navigating to the third data set. This one actually has some information. So this is all the data that would be in that violations. And so if I was in the data set doing a search, say rodents. So if you were in that data set and you search on rodents, any of the records that had that in it would actually show up. So you can actually start doing some, hey, let's do some things here, right? So, but anyway, so we took the code that creates this. So this is Durham County. And the Wake County information that is here, right? So we're now on the Wake County. So if we go through and we look at the page, so cut and paste basically the code. So this one is a little more complicated. There's a little more CSS. The HTML code is a little more complicated, right? Pulling in different widgets and different views. But if I preview this now, basically I have the same functionality. So I've taken something that's created in Durham, I've rapidly ported it to Wake County, and now I have the same functionality in, so again, open source, reuse that code, less work, and actually integrate and navigate multiple different data sets.
I
Yes?
just want to tell my students, because Chris has this wonderful idea for his project, and I'm looking at these data on food safety inspections, and his idea was to try and grab on Twitter feed, Facebook data on our reviews, our restaurant reviews, to try and pick up, complaints, customer complaints on restaurants. What they're trying to do is if they can catch inspections, because inspections are typically scheduled at given times, so they might miss like an E. coli break. But if you can capture Twitter sentiment feed and then try to see if they're getting a lot of negative reviews, maybe it's time to go inspect the restaurant. So that's your analytics, that you would combine this kind of data with some, you can grab Twitter data and you can actually, parse and reviews on that, combine the two, and then, they can actually use it to schedule inspections. I think that's really what we want you all to be learning and doing.
Yeah, I did pull some data from Yelp through using some Python scripts and some beautiful soup.
Oh, you've posted it here?
Yeah, some of that right there. The
All right,
restaurant
guys,
reviews.
who's taking this as a project when you're moving up?
I mean, I
Start
just did
thinking
it for a
about it.
sample, but yeah, the code is there and it updates. So if I run this again, I would get new reviews.
Oh, really?
Added to the data sets, the way it's being coded, the way it's posted up.
So these are all the reviews that people said they were sick, is the word that was in. Let's look for bad food. Wow. So bad food, there's 147 records. Somewhere it says bad. But
Yeah, you can do a
search
count of
function.
frequency and,
Yeah,
just
so,
see the average ratings.
You can do. So Chris had a Python script and scraped Yelp,
Yes,
right?
that's great. So I can share. It's on my GitHub, but I'll share it.
Okay, my 221 students.
Okay, any other questions, or I want to see, I can go on and on and on, I don't want to bore anybody. just wanted to show the functionality, talk a little bit about open data, talk about some of the things you can do. Yes.
I just want to ask, how long is the free account good for?
It's good as long as you want to have it,
Okay.
basically. So we have over 350 people across the world that now have a free account. You know, for us, it's the utilization on the platform is not that high, but we want you to become a customer. So we would love for you to use some of the functionality. Again, all the features are there. You don't have to buy different modules for, like, want to do the analysis or the maps or something. No, it's all there. All the functionality is there, so you'll be able to check it out on the free platform.
I was interested about the people that develop like the dashboards for like Durham County,
Mhm.
Durham website. Are they people that are already working for Durham
Yeah.
or, you know?
Yeah,
you
so,
train them?
so that code that you saw, you know, that's the limit of a basic web developer can get in and look at, there's some templates that you can then cut and paste. You can look to see what somebody else has done. Or if you see somebody else's page like that, you can view source and see what it is. And then all the documentation for the widgets and all the modifications you can make and refining data and all that through the widget is available. So, you know, you can get in, you can modify it pretty quickly. So I'll show you, so this is what, so one of our customers in a suburb of Cary, so EC, they took their annual report and they put it in an interactive format. 2 people developed this, had no coding skills when they started. So any of these you can click on, it's translating from French here, but again, I'm getting to pages. Here's an embedded visualization and some text, right? Embedded visualization. So this is about, so they took their entire financial report. And again, the hurdle, again, I don't believe the hurdle's very high. So these are 2 people that had no coding skill when they took on this project, and they're able to create this really cool interactive. And all this is these graphs. Again, if you want access to the data, it drives you back to their open data portal, so you can get to the actual data. Anything else?
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your time and coming in and seeing about Open Data.